The first thing I heard was the sound of something dying. Not a person, a machine. A hard, metallic coughing that bounced off the empty gravel road and crawled straight into my bones. At the same time, my own truck hissed and spat steam, my busted radiator joining the chorus. It was like the whole road was lined with things that were giving up. One of them was me. I pulled my truck onto the shoulder and killed the engine before it could finish the job. July heat wrapped around me the second I stepped out. The air was thick and wet. It felt like walking into a wet blanket. Then I saw the source of that other sound. Across the fence line, a tractor crawled along the edge of a wide green field. An old Massey Ferguson, vintage, the kind of red that had faded to the color of dried blood. Big rear tires, steel body, no plastic, no nonsense. It was beautiful and worn at the same time, a workhorse that had gone well past the miles on its warranty. On the seat sat a woman who looked like she could tell the clouds what to do. She wore a frayed straw hat pulled low, a white tank top dark with sweat at her collarbone, and denim shorts that had real work stains on them. No fashion farm here. She was fighting the steering wheel, guiding the tractor through deep ruts, listening harder than she steered. Every time the engine coughed, her head tilted a little, like she was counting beats in a bad song. She eased the throttle back and cut the engine right at the moment the knock came back. The sudden silence was heavy. The buzz of cicadas rushed in from the trees. I walked to the fence, wiping grease from my hands onto my jeans. The smell of diesel, cut hay, and hot dirt mixed in the air. Familiar. Comforting in a strange way. The woman did not climb down. She popped the side panel on the tractor and leaned over the engine. She ran her fingers along a fuel line, pressed her thumb against a loose clamp, then reached behind the seat for a short pry bar. She used it to snug the bracket tight, using leverage instead of muscle. Then she tapped the starter. The engine turned over and answered with the same rough rattle. "It's the injector pump," she said. She was talking to the tractor, not to me. Her fingers pointed at a damp spot near the housing and a dark streak down the block. "And he's not a she, he's Big Red." Only then did she look up. Her eyes skimmed over me, not in a shy way, but in a measuring way. She checked my boots, my belt, the grease on my hands, like she could see what I knew about engines before I opened my mouth. She did not smile. She weighed me. I tried to cut the tension with a joke. "Nice tractor," I said. Her mouth twitched, just a little. Then she patted the extra metal seat on the fender beside her. "You are the only guest I allow up here," she said. I blinked. "You want me to ride?" "I want you to listen," she answered, turning the key again. The engine groaned back to life. "If you know what a cracked manifold sounds like, maybe you can tell me why my hydraulics are screaming." Quote, "That was how I ended up climbing a rusted step and sitting on the fender of a stranger's tractor in the middle of nowhere, my shoulder brushing hers as we lurched forward. The smell hit me first. Diesel, sun-warmed hay, and something softer from her skin, like vanilla and soap. My hands found the edge of the metal seat. The machine vibrated under us, strong but uneven, like a runner with a bad knee. For the first time in 6 months, I did not feel like I was drifting. We rolled slowly along the fence line. From up on Big Red, I could see the whole farm. The rows of soybeans and corn were straight and neat, like someone had walked every line and refused to accept crooked. But the buildings told a different story. A barn door hanging on one hinge. A fence leaning at a tired angle. A mailbox near the lane stuffed full of envelopes with red letters. House poor, I thought. Or in this case, farm poor. All energy going into keeping the fields alive. Not enough left for everything else. The tractor coughed again. I leaned in closer to the engine, listening as she shifted gears. "You hear it?" she asked. "The injectors are tired," I said. "Pump is leaking, you have air in the line, and your hydraulic system is whining because those hoses are past their time." "So everything is fine," she said dry. I snorted. "Sure, if you like living on the edge." She cut the engine as we rolled into the shadow of a big barn. The doors were open. The inside tall and cool, with dust dancing in shafts of light. Old tools hung on the walls. A faded photo was tacked to a beam. A man in the same kind of straw hat leaned against Big Red when he was younger, paint still bright. She climbed down and stripped off her gloves. Then she held out her hand. "I'm Savannah," she said. "Aries," I said, taking it. Her grip was firm and rough with calluses. "I'm a fabricator, or I used to be." "Fabricator," she repeated. "Like what? Metal art?" "Like custom engine mounts, roll cages, retrofitting parts they do not make anymore," I said. My eyes went back to Big Red's engine. "I can make metal do things it does not want to do." Quote. Her mouth opened like she was about to ask more, but a new sound cut through the quiet. Tires on gravel. A car rolling up slow and sure. Savannah stiffened. A black sedan stopped just outside the barn. A man in a clean white shirt and neat slacks stepped out, holding a clipboard. He did not look around like he was impressed. He looked like he was already disappointed. "Sterling," Savannah muttered. He walked in, pen tapping on his clipboard. "Miss Green," he said. No handshake, no smile. "I see Big Red is still operational." "Barely," Savannah said. "He runs fine." "Does he?" Sterling walked around the tractor and pointed his pen at an exposed belt. "No guard, that is a violation, leak in the hydraulic line. And that roll bar is not code for a commercial operation." "I do not have employees," she snapped. "It is just me." "And that is the problem," he said, checking a box. "The bank requires full safety compliance for your harvest loan renewal. You have 3 weeks. If this machinery is not up to OSHA standard, we pull the funding. No loan, no fuel, no transport, no harvest." Quote. He handed her a sheet of paper. From where I stood, it looked like a safety checklist. It felt like an eviction notice. 3 weeks, he said again. "Or I tag the equipment and the farm shuts down." Then he turned and walked out. Savannah did not chase him. She stood in the quiet barn, holding the paper. The air felt heavier. She folded the sheet in half, then in half again. She did not tear it. She treated even bad news with care. 3 weeks, she repeated, almost to herself. We did not get 10 minutes before the next visitor. A different engine rumbled up the drive. This one was a pickup. Shiny, and lifted a little too high, paint clean, tires without a speck of mud. The man who got out wore new jeans and a shirt that had never seen sweat. He walked into the barn like he owned it. "Savannah Green," he said, drawing out her last name. "Heard Sterling was coming. Thought I would stop by before he scared you into selling." Savannah's jaw tightened. "Not interested, Cade." His eyes slid to me, then to my tools. "Didn't know you hired help." "I am not hired," I said. "Just passing through." Cade laughed like that was cute. "Sure, well, I am your nearest neighbor by acreage. I keep an eye on things. Banks do not like surprises. County does not either. Lots of rules these days." "Are you threatening me?" she asked. "No, ma'am," he said, hands up. "I am offering a lifeline. I can buy this place. Cash. Quick close. You walk away clean. If you wait until the bank pulls funding, you walk away with nothing." "I would rather go down swinging," Savannah said. "That is a romantic way to lose a family legacy," Cade answered. His eyes flicked to me one last time, like he was checking how much of a problem I was. Then he tipped an invisible hat and left. When his truck was gone, the barn felt big and empty. Savannah stared at the doorway for a long second. Then she looked at me. "He has been circling for a year," she said quietly. "He wants the land, the creek access. He wants to be the hero who saved the valley by owning it." "Then he is not a neighbor," I said. "He is a vulture." Her gaze met mine. The guarded look in her eyes shifted. There was a spark there now. Not hope, not yet, but trust trying to form. "That is why I cannot mess this up," she said. Her fingers trembled a little on the folded paper before she tightened her grip. I looked at Big Red. I looked at the old backup tractor in the shadows. I looked at the woman standing in front of both, holding the weight of 40 years of work and one bad signature. "I can fix it," I said. She frowned. "What? The guard? The hydraulics? The roll bar? I can build a roll cage that meets code and fits this frame, I said, walking back to the tractor and running my hand along the fender. I can rebuild the injector pump. I can clean up the hydraulics and make Sterling run out of boxes to check. I can't pay you, she said. Her voice was low. Not what you are worth. I looked back at my dead truck on the road, steam still curled up from under the hood. My radiator is shot, I said. I need a place to park and a bed while the parts come in, room and board, and you let me use this shop. She studied me like she had studied the engine, looking for weak spots, looking for lies. Why? She asked. Because I hate seeing people like you get crushed by men with clipboards. Because sitting next to you on that tractor felt like the first right thing in months. Because 3 weeks was a problem that made sense. Because I hate seeing good machinery go to waste, I said instead. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded once. The guest cottage is out back, she said. It has running water and a bed. Dinner is at 6. The clock in her kitchen would keep ticking toward 3 weeks no matter what I did. But as I watched her walk back out into the sun, shoulders square, I felt something settle inside me. For the first time in a long time, I was not just passing through. The next morning I woke up to the sound of a rooster and the smell of coffee. For a second I forgot where I was. Then I saw the old wood ceiling, heard the cicadas starting up outside, and remembered. Savannah's farm, broken truck, 3 weeks. I pulled on my jeans and boots and headed straight to the barn. Big Red sat in the middle of the shop like an old fighter in a ring. I ran my hand over the hood and then started stripping him down. I pulled the injector pump, laid every part out on a canvas tarp in neat rows. Metal bones. I checked each piece with my fingers and my eyes, listening for stories only worn edges could tell. Out in the fields, I heard a smaller engine. Savannah was already driving the backup tractor, turning soil before the heat got bad. She started at dawn, no alarms, no fuss, just work. By noon, the air felt heavy enough to drink. Sweat ran down my back. I had my sleeves rolled up and a welding mask down, working on a new bracket for the safety guard, when I heard footsteps on the concrete. I flipped the mask up. Savannah stood there with a pitcher of iced tea, hair pulled back under her hat, shirt sticking to her shoulders from the heat. She stopped a few feet away and watched me weld like she had not expected me to actually do what I said. You are really doing it, she said. I told you I would, I answered. She poured tea into a glass and handed it to me. Our fingers brushed. Cold glass. Warm skin. A small jolt went up my arm that had nothing to do with electricity. She leaned against the workbench while I drank. Her eyes never left my hands. You move like you have done this 1,000,000 times, she said. I used to build custom hot rods, I told her. Rich guys, toys. They wanted them to look wild but be safe enough to drive to the country club. I nodded at the tractor. This is better. This machine feeds people. It feeds me, she said quietly, if it runs. It will run, I said. Better than it did before. I turned back to the lathe. I needed to mill a spacer for the new guard. The cut had to be perfect. I fell into an old rhythm. Measure, lock, cut. Metal curled away in long, silver ribbons. When I slid the finished piece into place, it clicked into the slot like it had been born there. Show off, she murmured, but there was a smile in her voice. That night, she cooked fried chicken and fresh corn. We ate on the porch while the sun dropped behind the tree line and fireflies started blinking in the tall grass. Why did you leave the city? She asked, eyes on the dark line of the trees, not on me. Partner trouble, I said. I put in the work. He put in the money. Then he put the money in his own pocket and left me with the bills. I lost the shop, lost the taste for shiny things. I am sorry, she said. Don't be, I said. It led me here. She turned her head then. The porch light made soft shadows across her face, catching the strong line of her jaw and the curve of her mouth. Her eyes held mine longer than felt safe. I am glad you are here, Aries, she said. Me too, I answered. The space between us felt tight and humming. I wanted to reach across the table and wrap my hand around hers. I did not. My hand stayed on my knees. I was the guy sleeping in her guest cottage, turning bolts on her machines. She was fighting to keep her family's land. The line was thin and very real. 2 weeks went by fast. We fell into a rhythm without talking about it. I fixed things. She ran the farm. The roll cage came together, weld by weld. I rebuilt the injector pump and coaxed the hydraulics back into something close to smooth. The engine's cough turned into a strong, low growl. I also started fixing things she did not ask me to touch. The kitchen screen door stuck every time she tried to push it open with full arms. One afternoon while she was in town, I planed the swollen wood and oiled the hinges. When she came back, she braced her shoulder against it like always, and nearly stumbled forward when it swung open with no resistance. She stared at the door, then at me. "You fixed it," she said. "It was annoying me," I said, pretending it was nothing. She walked over, set the grocery bags down, and wrapped her hand around my forearm. The squeeze was brief and strong. "You ruined me for any other mechanic," she said. "Good," I answered before I could stop myself. The threat hanging over everything did not disappear. Sterling was due back in 4 days. The new roll cage was installed. Big Red's engine was running better than it had in years, but the hydraulic system for the front loader was still old, and the replacement hoses I had ordered were taking their time. Then the weather turned. A huge summer storm rolled in one Tuesday afternoon. The sky went from blue to ugly purple in minutes. Wind whipped through the corn, bending stalks low. The air tasted like metal. Savannah headed out to the north field to check the drainage ditches and keep an eye on the creek that cut along the edge of her land. I stayed in the barn, putting final torque on the roll bar bolts. I could feel the building shake when the first thunder hit. The rain did not start as a drizzle. It fell in a sheet, hard and sudden. For 10 minutes I waited, expecting the backup tractor to roll back into the yard with Savannah on it. She did not come. I grabbed my truck keys, then remembered my radiator was still dead. I looked at Big Red. The roll cage was not painted yet, and the seat was not fully bolted down, but the engine was solid and the tires were good. I climbed up and turned the key. Big Red came to life with a deep, healthy roar that made my chest loosen. I eased him out into the storm. The rain hit my face like someone throwing handfuls of water. I could barely see 10 yards ahead, but I knew where the creek was. I drove that way, headlights cutting weak tunnels in the wall of water. I found her near the low point in the field. The backup tractor was buried to the axles in mud, tilted at a bad angle. The creek beside it was rising fast, brown water rushing hard. Savannah was on foot, soaked, trying to wedge a board under the tire. Her boots slipped in the muck. She looked small against the power of the storm. I pulled Big Red as close as I dared. The new floodlights I had mounted on the roll cage cut through the rain and lit the scene. "Savannah!" I yelled. She spun around, hair plastered to her face, eyes wide. I could not tell if the shine there was rain or panic. "I cannot lose this tractor too," she shouted back. "The creek is coming up." "Leave it," I said, jumping down. My boots sank into the mud with a cold suck. "It is just metal." Quote, "It is my livelihood," she fired back. "I cannot afford to lose it." "You cannot afford to drown," I said. I moved past her and waded to the stuck tractor. The mud pulled at my legs, but I fought through and hooked a heavy tow chain from Big Red's drawbar to the backup tractor's axle. My fingers were slick with rain and grease, but muscle memory did the work. Simple knot. Solid link. "Get up here!" I yelled as I climbed back onto Big Red. She scrambled up onto the fender seat beside me, grabbing the new safety handle I had welded on the day before. Her shoulder pressed against mine. We were both shaking from cold, not from fear of the machine. I feathered the clutch and eased on the throttle. Big Red dug in. The rear tires spun once, then bit into the gravel of the access path. The chain went tight. The stuck tractor groaned and then popped free with a loud wet sound as the mud let go. We pulled it out of the low ground and up onto higher dirt. Only when both machines were safe did I kill the engine. Inside the barn, the storm was louder than any engine. Rain pounded the tin roof in a steady roar. We were both dripping, clothes stuck to our skin, boots leaving wet prints on the concrete. Savannah slid down from the fender and leaned back against Big Red's huge rear tire. Her chest rose and fell fast. Her hands shook where they rested on her thighs. "I thought I lost it," she whispered. "You did not lose it," I said, standing in front of her. My heart was still racing from the pull, from the storm, from the way she looked right then. "I have you." She lifted her eyes to mine. The look there knocked the air out of me more than the run to the creek had. It was not just relief. It was hunger and something like anger at herself for needing help at all. "Why do you stay?" she asked. Her voice was soft but steady. "You fixed your truck 3 days ago. I saw the parts box in the trash." I froze for a second. She was right. The new radiator had come in. I had installed it. I could have been gone. "Yeah," I said, "I did." "So why are you still here?" she pressed. "Because the roll cage was not painted." I started, knowing it sounded weak even as I said it. She stepped closer. Water dripped from the brim of her hat. She pulled it off and tossed it onto the workbench without looking. "Aries," she said, low and firm, "stop fixing the tractor and tell me the truth." I swallowed. My throat felt dry despite all the rain. "I stay because of you," I said. The words came out rough. "Because you are the toughest person I have ever met. Because I want to be the one who makes sure your doors do not stick and your machines do not fail when some guy with a clipboard comes to judge you." She reached up and cupped my face in her hands. Her palms were cold, but her touch burned. "Then stop talking," she said. She kissed me. It tasted like rain and fear, and something I had been trying not to name since the moment she patted that fender seat and said I was the only guest allowed up there. I wrapped my arms around her waist and pulled her closer. My wet shirt soaked hers. She hooked her fingers into the back of my collar like she was afraid I might still leave. I lifted her just enough to sit her on the edge of Big Red's huge tire, bracing my hands on the rubber beside her hips. The world shrank to the heat between us and the steady pounding of rain on the roof. We did not make it to a bedroom. We stayed there in the barn, under the smell of diesel and wet earth, holding on to each other while the storm raged outside. For a few hours, the only deadline that mattered was the beat of her heart against my chest. The next morning, the storm was gone. But when I stepped outside and saw the backup tractor sitting crooked by the creek with a dark stain under it, I understood something else had arrived with the rain. Trouble that was not an accident. The morning after the storm felt too calm. The sky was clear and bright. The fields steamed in the new sun. From the porch, it could have been any quiet summer day. My body hurt in good ways, from work and from the night in the barn with Savannah. Then I saw the backup tractor. It sat near the creek at a bad angle. Mud crusted the tires. Under the belly of the machine, the ground was dark and slick. At first, I thought it was just leftover storm mess. Then, the smell hit me. Not just hydraulic fluid. Something sharper. Chemical. Wrong. I walked down the slope and crouched beside the stain. The dirt shone with a rainbow sheen. Not good. I slid under the tractor with a flashlight and a rag. One of the hydraulic lines had blown. Only it did not look like a blow. Hoses fail ugly. They tear, they bubble, they split in ragged lines. This one was cut clean, like someone had taken a sharp knife to it on purpose. My jaw locked. I wiped the line. The cut was straight. No fray, no stretch. Not an accident. Not from pressure. From a hand and a blade. I pulled my phone out, took photos from 3 angles. Then, I grabbed a zip bag from my pocket, slid the damaged section of hose inside, and taped it shut. Chain of custody, just like we did at the shop for any part connected to a big accident. Habit is a powerful thing. If someone wanted this place shut down, they had just left fingerprints. Sterling showed up 2 days early. His sedan rolled into the yard while I was cleaning tools. He got out with the same clipboard and the same neutral face. He walked straight past the barn and headed for the creek like he already knew where to look. Savannah met him halfway, boots sinking into the damp ground. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "You said 3 weeks." "I had a report of a spill," he said. He pointed at the slick dirt near the creek. "Environmental hazard. Hydraulic fluid leaking into a waterway. That is an immediate cease and desist. It was a storm, Savannah said. We were saving the equipment. It was an emergency. We did not dump anything. Does not matter, Sterling replied. Regulations are regulations. He pulled a bright red tag from his folder and slapped it on the barn door. The sound was small, but it might as well have been an explosion. Shut it all down, he said. No operation, no harvest until full cleanup and review. That can take weeks. You will miss your window. Quote, Savannah went pale. Missing the window meant missing the loan. Missing the loan meant missing everything. I will appeal, she said. Her voice was thin, but still steady. Appeals take months, Sterling said. For once, he almost sounded sorry. I am sorry, Savannah. He walked back to his sedan and drove away. Savannah did not yell. She did not throw anything. She just stood in the gravel with her hands at her sides until the dust settled. Then she turned and walked toward the house like she was carrying a weight too heavy for anyone else to see. I did not follow her, not yet. Down by the creek, an engine idled soft. I moved to the fence line, keeping to the trees. A truck sat near the water, engine running low. Cade's truck. I knew the shape of it by then. He thought he was alone. I saw him haul a 5-gallon can out of the bed and set it by the bank. He tipped it, liquid poured out, and ran toward the same spot Sterling had pointed at earlier. He was not cleaning anything. He was feeding the stain. I hit record on my phone before I stepped closer. When I snapped my flashlight on, he jerked and dropped the can. His eyes jumped to mine, then to my phone. What are you doing, Cade? I asked. He straightened up slow, trying on that easy grin. Helping, he said. Cleaning up after the storm. You never know what kind of mess these old machines make. Storms do not cut hoses in straight lines, I said. I held up the zip bag with the severed hose, then tilted my phone so he could see the red recording dot. You want to try that again? His jaw flexed. You cannot prove anything. Maybe not here, I said, but I bet the bank's compliance board will enjoy the show. So will the county if they think someone tried to frame a farm as a hazard to force a sale. Bootsteps sounded behind me. Savannah came down the path, face pale but eyes sharp. Get off my land, Cade, she said. For the first time, his smile cracked for real. He picked up the can, put it in the truck bed, and climbed in without another word. The tires threw mud as he left. I watched until the truck was gone. Then I looked at Savannah. Her hands were clenched into fists. I sent the video to my email, I said. Twice. Different accounts. Time-stamped. That piece of hose is sealed. We have proof. This was not neglect. It was sabotage. She nodded, but she looked far away. We walk into Sterling's office with that, I said. We do not beg. We present a case. She turned and walked back up to the house without answering. Inside, the kitchen was too quiet. The red tag on the barn door was visible through the window like an accusation. Savannah stood at the counter, fingers gripping the edge so hard her knuckles went white. You should go, she said without turning around. No, I said. The farm is done, Aries, she said. I cannot pay you. I cannot feed you. It is over. The bank will not wait for an appeal. Sterling has his excuse. Cade has his offer. I lost. It is a hydraulic spill, I said. I have a hazmat handling certification from my old shop. We can do the cleanup right and document every step. We can show containment. We can show cause. She spun around. Her eyes were bright with tears she would not let fall. It does not matter, she said. My father kept this place running for 40 years. I lost it in 5. That is what people will see. Not the sabotage. Not your files. Just me, failing. You did not fail, I said. You have been fighting a war with a stick while they bring lawyers and regulations. Just go, she said, voice breaking. Please. I do not want you to watch me lose everything. I cannot handle that too. She was pushing me away to protect me, or maybe to protect herself. Either way, it hit like a punch. I walked right up to her. I did not touch her. I just stepped into her space until she had to look up at me. I am not going anywhere, I said. My voice came out low and steady. I fixed your tractor. I fixed your door. I am going to fix this. How? She whispered. You cannot weld a bank into caring. No, I said, but I can give them something they care about more than Cade's story. Risk, paperwork, proof. I have a plan. I just need you to trust me and sign a couple of things. Quote, for the next 48 hours, I worked like the old days, when every mistake could end up in court. I did not just dig up the stained soil, I mapped it. I drew a grid, logged each square, and bagged the dirt in labeled sample bags. I wrote a chain of custody list with times, dates, and signatures. Savannah signed it. I signed it. I called a small environmental lab 2 counties over and arranged a rush analysis. I hired a local cleanup contractor on paper, put them on standby, and wrote up an emergency mitigation plan. Pumping, trenching, containment. I did not wait for the bank to tell us what to do. I showed them it was already being done. Then I went to work on the backup tractor. I fabricated a hydraulic shield that was better than the one it should have come with. Heavier gauge steel, extra brackets. I took photos of every step. Before, during, after. I wrote a short report in plain language about how the shield reduced the chance of a leak in the future. The last piece was my old partner. Calling him made my teeth grind, but I did it. He answered on the 3rd ring, sounding too relaxed for a man who had burned down my last business. I need a favor, I said. This a joke? He asked. No, I said. I need you to verify my hazmat certification and safety record to the county board and the bank's risk office by 9 tomorrow morning. You do it, and I forget your creative accounting from a couple years back. You do not, and I send every file I have to the IRS and the state. Silence, then a curse, then a gritted fine. In the guest cottage that night, I spread everything on the table: photos, logs, lab request forms, mitigation contracts, fabrication notes. I built a binder instead of a machine, 1 page at a time. When I was done, my hands shook the same way they did after a hard weld. Savannah came to the doorway and watched me close the covers. What is that? She asked. A story, I said. The kind banks and inspectors have to listen to. Containment started. Proof of sabotage. Safety upgrades. A plan to fix the mess that is already moving. Quote, she stepped in, bare feet quiet on the floor, and rested her hand on the binder. You really think this will work? She asked. I think it gives us a fighting chance, I said. I think we walk in there as partners with a solution, not beggars with a problem. Her eyes searched my face. Whatever she saw there made something in her loosen, just a little. Okay, she said, then we fight. She did not kiss me that night. She did not need to. The way she said we was its own kind of promise. 2 days later, we drove into town with the binder on my lap. Savannah sat behind the wheel of her old pickup, knuckles white on the steering wheel. The closer we got to the regional bank office, the quieter she became. Streets turned from gravel to asphalt. Fields turned to parking lots and glass doors. You sure about this? She asked, eyes on the road. No, I said honestly, but I am sure about the work, and I am sure about you. That is enough. She blew out a slow breath and nodded. Inside, the bank's conference room smelled like carpet cleaner and coffee. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A long table sat in the center, polished and cold. Sterling was already there, seated near one end with his clipboard and a neat stack of files. Beside him sat a woman in a navy blazer, the bank's compliance director, and a man with a laptop open, the risk officer. In the back row of chairs, like he had a ticket to a show, sat Cade. Clean jeans, fresh shirt, lazy grin. Savannah and I took the seats opposite Sterling. I set the binder on the table between us. It landed with a solid thud. What is this? Sterling asked. Proof, I said, and a plan. I opened the binder and flipped to the first tab. Tab A, I said. Emergency mitigation. Signed contract with a licensed cleanup crew. Site visit documented. Pump and sandbag plan in place at the creek. Photos. Timeline. The compliance director skimmed the pages, eyes flicking fast. The risk officer leaned in to see the photos. Tab B, I continued. Soil sample chain of custody. Grid map of the site, bag labels, signatures, timestamps. Samples already in transit to the lab. They will have the report back in 48 hours. I turned to Tab C. Equipment safety upgrades, I said. New hydraulic shield on the backup tractor. Material specs, photos of fabrication, installation sequence. It exceeds manufacturer standards. Sterling's jaw tightened. You cannot fix a contaminated creek in 3 days, he said. We did not fix it, Savannah said evenly. We contained it. We stopped it from spreading. We followed mitigation guidelines while you were still filling out red tags. Her voice did not shake. I felt a small swell of pride in my chest. Even if all this checks out, Sterling said, keeping his tone calm, the fact remains that a leak occurred under your operation. That raises questions of negligence. That is Tab D, I said. I pulled out a clear evidence envelope and set it on the table. Inside was the sealed piece of hose. Benched next to it was a printed screenshot and a small USB drive. This is the hose from the backup tractor, I said. I pulled it myself the morning after the storm. You can see on the photos here the cut is straight, not blown from pressure, cut by a blade. I slid the printed screenshots forward. Grainy, but clear enough. Cade struck by the creek. Cade with the can. The pour. My flashlight beam catching him in the act. And this, I added, tapping the USB, is video from that morning. Time-stamped. Shows Cade at the creek after your tag. Shows him pouring fluid right where you pointed out the spill. He calls it help. It looks a lot like sabotage. The compliance director went very still. The risk officer's fingers paused over his keys. Cade shifted in his chair. The grin slipped for the first time since I had met him. That is taken out of context, he said quickly. You cannot prove what was in that can. What I can prove, I said, is that the hose was cut, not blown. That fluid was added after the storm, not during it. And that someone with a lot to gain from a shutdown was by that creek when he had no business being there. The compliance director turned to Sterling. Did you know about this? She asked. He swallowed. I had a report of a spill, he said. I tagged the site. I did not investigate further. The risk officer looked from the binder to me. You are the mechanic? He asked. I am the mechanic, I said, and a certified hazmat handler from my previous shop, and a fabricator. I called my old testing center. They have already verified my credentials to your board. The laptop dinged like it wanted to prove the point. The risk officer glanced at the screen. His eyebrows went up. Verification just came through, he said. He is telling the truth. Silence filled the room for a moment. The compliance director closed the binder gently and folded her hands on top of it. Here is what I see, she said. A spill that is contained. A clear chain of custody for samples. A remediation plan ready to deploy. Equipment brought into compliance with safety standards. And credible evidence that the severity of the spill may have been worsened by a third party. That is not negligence. That is someone doing everything they can to fix a problem they did not create. She turned to Savannah. The bank will lift the operational hold pending lab confirmation, she said. Your harvest loan remains in place. We will require regular updates on the cleanup, but you are cleared to proceed. Savannah closed her eyes for one long second. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. When she opened them again, they were wet, but she did not let the tears fall. Thank you, she said simply. Cade stood up a little too fast. You are making a mistake, he said. This whole place is a risk. You are throwing good money after bad. I offered her a clean exit. You offered her a bargain based on a false picture, the risk officer said dryly. You may want to consider your own exposure right now. Cade's mouth twisted. He looked at Savannah, then at me. This is not over, he muttered. It is for today, I said. We walked out of the bank in the light rain. Not a storm, just a soft shower that darkened the sidewalk and made the air smell clean. In the truck, Savannah stared straight ahead for a minute before starting the engine. Her hands trembled just enough that I reached over and covered one with mine. You did it, I said. We did it, she corrected. Back at the farm, the red tag on the barn door was the first thing I pulled down. The adhesive fought me, then gave way with a sharp rip. I crumpled it in my fist and tossed it in the trash. Savannah stood in the doorway, watching. The wind blew a strand of hair across her face. She did not hide her smile when it came. Harvest came fast after that. Lab results came back in 2 days. Levels were high in the small area we had contained, but the report praised the quick response and limited spread. The cleanup crew moved earth, hauled contaminated soil away, and replaced it with fresh fill. I kept every receipt and added them to the back of the binder like I was building armor. Sterling came once more, but it was different this time. He had questions. I had answers and paperwork. When he left, he shook Savannah's hand. It was not warm, but it was real. Cade kept his distance. His truck stayed off the property line. The machines ran like they were grateful. Big Red purred. The backup tractor held pressure like a promise. The new shields stayed clean. The roll cage passed every side eye. The first morning of harvest, the sky was clear and gold. Savannah walked out to the barn in her straw hat and boots, her tank top already damp from the early humidity. She rested her hand on Big Red's fender and then looked at me. "You coming?" she asked. "I thought Big Red only allowed special guests up there," I said. She smiled, slow and sure. "You are the only guest I allow up here," she said. My chest tightened at the echo of that first day. I climbed the steps and took my place on the fender seat. The engine rumbled under us as she turned the key. Fields stretched ahead, full and ready. We drove the first pass along the fence line. Dust rose behind us. The rows fell in neat patterns, the machine and her hands working in a rhythm I was already starting to match. After a while, she cut the engine and let the quiet settle. The only sounds were insects and the ticking of cooling metal. She turned toward me, one knee drawn up on the seat, one hand resting on the wheel. "You came here to fix a tractor," she said. I shook my head. "I came here because someone tried to break you," I said. "I just started with the tractor." She watched me for a long moment, every wall she used to keep the world at arm's length gone. "Stay," she said, just that, one word. No conditions, no jokes. I could have given a speech. I did not. I let the decision sit for a heartbeat. Then I reached over and laid my hand over hers on the steering wheel. "I am staying," I said, "as long as you will have me, as your mechanic, as your partner, not as a stranger passing through." Her fingers curled around mine. The smile that broke over her face was small and fierce and honest. She leaned in and kissed me. Slow this time, with no storm chasing us, no deadline hanging over our heads. The taste of diesel and dust and sweet tea mixed in the air. When we pulled back, the field waited. Work waited. A whole list of small broken things still needed fixing. Screen doors, loose boards,